Welcome into the Paul Farrington Show. Paul, joined by Robert Ziggy Ziegler at the University of Virginia, I believe live from his teaching office, correct, Ziggy?
Indeed, I am today at the University of Virginia. It's an emergency podcast, so we had to record it while I'm at work.
Do you just bring that microphone with you all over the place just in case you need to go?
You never know, Paul. You never know. We got the old shirt right here. You know, people wonder if I use a microphone. I do. Ready to go.
You never know when there's going to be breaking news or a trade. Ziggy will be on the bus and he'll just load up his laptop and he's good. He's good to go here. So, all right. Fun episode today. Just some big NFC North news yesterday that we want to react to. So a bit of an NFC North reaction on today's episode. If you've been enjoying the content we put out, please remember to like, comment, and to subscribe to our channel. Check us out on social media as well. We just put out a ton of draft content this past weekend. We were at the draft in Green Bay, as most people listening to this, I'd imagine, are aware. But we had some really fun videos come out. So go back and check out our draft day vlogs, behind the scenes, talking to prospects in the green room. It actually was a pretty unique experience that I thought was fun for football fans. If you want to check that out and see what's really happening behind the scenes when you're at the draft. We had a great time.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I learned a ton. You know, you see things you've never seen. You talk to prospects. Like, there was just tons of stuff that I never knew would happen. Yeah. It was really exciting to be able to share some of that with our fans. You can see me go on Lambeau Field. Sort of a special experience there, a little magical.
We had
you might say
tape right before the Ashton Genty Ziggy Oklahoma drill, but that would have been special had that happened. It probably also would have plummeted Ashton Genty's draft day stock.
You had fun to the Vikings.
Yeah, you would have soared up though, Ziggy. You might have been a day one guy instead of undrafted. Yeah, if any team's interested in signing Ziggy, he's here for the taking. So today we're gonna go over a few stories from around the NFC North. We're gonna start in Green Bay because there's some weird things happening with Jaire Alexander. A lot of confusion surrounding this story because not too long ago it appeared that Jaire Alexander in no world was going to return to the Packers in 2024. But now you see sources all over the place are saying, well, everything's on the table. A trade, a release, and yes, even a return to the Green Bay Packers. And I think a lot of this has been sort of stimulated by Green Bay not taking a cornerback until the 7th round in the NFL draft. It was the one of the two position groups that they needed to address. And they frankly just let it go.
You told me Bugs isn't going to take care of business.
Oh yeah, I forgot that we keep having this Bugs. We keep having this discussion here. But in all seriousness, the Packers really didn't address the cornerback position, and it was one that everybody that we spoke to at the draft, everybody online, any Packers fan would say we need some help in that room right now. No matter how much you believe in Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Valentine, or Nate Hobbs, like those guys could get you through. But they're one injury away from a catastrophe there. And Jaire being in that room, I would say, greatly helps them on their they're a win now team. He's a win now player for them, assuming he can stay on the field. Real quickly, just want to say a couple of the interesting quotes around it. So Gutekunst said, nothing's changed, no updates. We'll proceed as we go for right now, see how it goes. Obviously not giving away too much. But Matthew Golden, I thought, had a really interesting one. And Packers fans will be excited to hear this. After he was drafted, they were asking him about which Packer players reached out to him. He said, Jordan Love did, Jaden Reed hit me up, and Jaire Alexander. They all texted me, it's time to get to work. Now, that doesn't necessarily, Ziggy, I don't know. I buy into these things a little more than you, but that doesn't exactly seem like the actions of a guy who's completely checked out of his team.
Well, yeah, it doesn't suggest that Jaire Alexander's a malcontent that can't wait to leave the Packers. And I think we've always sort of known that this is a one-sided thing. I mean, if I'm Jaire, of course I want to come back and be paid like one of the highest, be like the third or fourth highest paid cornerback in the NFL next year playing for a competitive team, right? Like if you're Jaire, of course you want that to happen. But I mean, we saw it this offseason. A lot of people really well connected to the Packers. They're beat reporters like Matt Schneidman from The Athletic, Andy Herman. I'm not dunking on these guys. They're much more connected than us. But they kept saying that Jaire was totally out. Andy Herman gave it a 99.99% chance a couple of days ago that Jaire was gone next year. And from a football perspective, it was just hard for me to understand why that would be, especially after the draft, like you said, where they didn't add any cornerbacks. But even setting the draft aside, we've talked about it on this show. The Green Bay defense was very, very good next year. But the only way I can see them being truly elite having a defense that can do what some of the better defenses in the NFL did last year and carry a team when Jordan Love has struggles. The only way I can see them doing that is by having Jaire in that room. Because the only way they can have a truly elite secondary, rather than just like pretty good secondary they had last year, is if Jaire comes back and is healthy. So if you've got the cap space this year, which they do, if you don't roll a bunch of guarantees into next year, which they don't have to, from a football perspective, I always thought Jaire coming back made a lot more sense than letting him walk and risking him playing great for one of your best competitors.
Mm-hmm. And the actions of the Packers, given their draft philosophy and given the free agents that are left right now, there's not too many options where you can go. We were talking about Asante Samuel Jr. for the Vikings a lot, but he's got that injury that seems to be lingering here. And how many of those guys are still on the market are guys that you think can be a big impact player next year?
None of them. If they could be a big impact player next year, they'd be signed already.
They'd be signed. So Rob Demoski was the guy who reported all of this, Jaire possibly returning. He called in the ESPN Milwaukee yesterday, breaking the news and talking about the return. He did say, though, was it possible for Jaire to return without restructuring the contract? No. And at this point in time, Jaire's making $17.5 million in 2025. We don't have to get into all the number side of it, but basically, the Packers coaching staff, from what Rob was saying, are the real people who are frustrated with Jaire here. It's not the teammates, it's not the locker room behavior. It's that he's just not, they don't know when he'll play and when he won't, which is, I understand, it's very understandable for a coach, right? If you don't have your star cornerback, a lot of game plan adjustments need to be made, and especially when you're playing against Justin Jefferson, you'd like to know if Jaire Alexander is going to be on the field. But that contract's going to need to be restructured here. And the Packers did it with Preston Smith just a year ago, if we remember. I think I was on the train to an Olivia Rodrigo concert when that Preston Smith news came in. And they lowered the base salary, but they actually gave him the opportunity to make more money through incentives.
And that's pretty typical.
Yeah, perhaps we see something like that with Jaire heading into the 2025 season, where he's just got to be on the field. He's only played in 7 games the last 2 years, or each of the last 2 years, and he's too good to just sit on the sideline. Now, I know he went on IR last week this season. There's just a lot of noise surrounding his availability whenever these injuries come up, and that's something that Packers fans have obviously grown frustrated with. But I think you said before, and this is something that I do believe Packer fans would admit, is that they kind of need him. And when you do need him the way they do, or have your eyes on the Super Bowl the way they do, I actually think he's going to wind up going back to the Packers.
Yeah, I mean, he should be willing to renegotiate that contract to be more than a restructuring, because it wouldn't just be turning money into guarantees. But what could imagine Jaire's not getting traded. That's just not happening. The only compensation the Packers could get is in the draft next year. I think it would be pretty minimal. I don't see any team very excited to take on his contract as it currently stands. So really the only 2 options here are Jaire returns on a renegotiated deal or gets cut and signs a deal somewhere else. Realistically, in the open market, how much money is Jaire Alexander actually going to make? A whole lot less than $17 million next year. So if from his perspective, as he said, right, he's reaching out to the players who are drafted. The teammates like him. He seems to like the organization. The Packers will be a very competitive team next year. Like, he could get more money if he was willing to go to a bottom feeder, but I don't think that's something he's willing to do. He should be willing to renegotiate that contract, which I think further suggests that a return of the Packers is possible. And honestly, I know there's frustration. People are upset about the injuries and the lack of availability, and to some extent, the lack of transparency. I really get it. At a certain point, you've got to be a grown-up and set that aside. And I think it's time for the Packers to accept that, their targets in the draft, I'm sure they looked at cornerbacks very carefully, and the guys that they wanted weren't available. If the guys you want in the draft aren't there, the free agents, you were able to bring in somebody who's a nickel corner, but probably can't be a CB1. I don't think Nate Hobbs is going to be that guy. I think he'll be a great, reliable player, but he's not going to be a star for them. If you can't get your targets in the draft or free agency, you might just have to eat your vegetables, bring him back, and hope he's healthy. Because if he is, I truly believe Jaire Alexander can still be an all-pro level player.
Ziggy, I was just saying before, if one of those guys gets hurt, that cornerback room is barren. And that could be a real problem for the Packers.
Even if they miss 2 games, right? That could be loss.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so we'll get ready to wrap up on Jaire here. Let us know in the comments section if you'd like to see him back in Green Bay next season. Just because
Packers fans seem really hostile to having him back, and I sort of don't get why.
Well,
I think at this point, people are just resentful about last year.
Yeah, they're more involved with the day-to-day. Oh, am I going to play? Oh, is he not going to play? Oh, he's practicing. Oh, he's not practicing. I can understand where that gets frustrating, but it seems by all accounts that he's a nice dude. And
I mean, he grew up from that like 1-game suspension a couple years ago. It seems like that really made a difference.
Yeah, with the whole captain thing. I understand why Packers fans would be annoyed with him, but this is different from Aaron Rodgers coming out and running his mouth during the offseason, and it's a different sort of frustration with the player.
Yeah. Jaire has gone out of his way to avoid stirring trouble over, like, he could easily be complaining right now to the media saying, let me go, I want out, make a decision. Because I'm sure if you're Jaire Alexander, you can't be happy about the fact that it's May now. And you don't know where you're going to play.
I'd love for him to be gone. I don't want to see Jaire Alexander next year. And
he owns Justin Jefferson.
That's something. Well, all right. That's something that I think is a good strategy. When your opponent, when your enemy is going, please do this. Maybe not the best decision in the world. But because we do all the research, and Ziggy's a detective here, the Packers did virtually start their offseason program. The traffic around Lambeau Field, they decided to do it virtually. Jaire was a participant.
Well, they can't stop him from coming because he has a $700,000 workout bonus. So he's going to do absolutely everything in this offseason.
But he was not featured in the photos by Packers.com who showed up in person on Monday. So he may have been there virtually and may have not shown up in person. That's still a little...
I think there's no chance Jaire's not taking the $700,000 and showing up.
We'll see. Okay, over to Minnesota, the great state of Minnesota, where it's always sunshines and rainbows. It actually was sunshines and rainbows watching JJ McCarthy finally throw the football around, and man, boy, did that thing look crisp coming off his hand. Oh, I mean, JJ to Hawkinson, get used to hearing it.
JJ to Addison.
JJ
so there's that great deep ball to Addison.
JJ to Felton. It's no, jokes aside. So JJ McCarthy's finally throwing the football again, which is great to see following the torn meniscus in his right knee. Kevin Seifert of ESPN said to JJ, "Do you think you're ready to start?" And how about this Tom Brady-like answer from JJ? "I know I'm ready to start." And it's got a lot of Vikings fans excited, which is we're going to get made fun of by the rest of the NFC North here. But we really are excited to hear statements like this because it has been a long year of his recovery. I mean, it was a lot of fun with Sam Darnold in the 14-3 season. Don't get me kidding. But there is still this kind of anxiousness to get going with the guy.
I want to open the mystery box
that everyone believes in. Exactly. We've been searching for this franchise quarterback for a while now. And it depends what you think of Kirk. I actually think it's a little unfair to say the Vikings haven't had a franchise quarterback because Kirk was there for 5 or 6 years. Like that's franchise quarterback material. But we haven't had our own guy really be homegrown since like Dante Culpepper, which is kind of crazy. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater had a chance, but this is an exciting moment for Vikings fans where, and I think any football fan can relate. When you have your guy, it's an awesome feeling, but there's also that nervousness of we also haven't seen him play. So who knows if he's going to be the guy. And the Vikings are in this weird situation where they are actually ready, kind of how they often seem to be. They're ready to win now. They just need to bring it together. So I'm pretty jacked up for this offseason, Ziggy. I'm excited. Do you think that I need to temper my expectations here?
I mean, we saw this on Twitter already. I posted a little thing, JJ McCarthy, we're so back. And people are saying, well, let's see how JJ McCarthy looks under pressure in a big game. Okay, maybe fair enough, but like we can't do that, right? The big games don't start until September. At this point, all we can do is see how he's playing. And here's the fact. It is just not the case that every quarterback that comes out looks good in training camp, looks good making throws. You know, it's not actually as easy as these guys make it look to throw like a 40-yard bomb into the end zone, hit a guy in stride in his hands. Like that's actually a difficult thing to do. Even for NFL quarterbacks.
Most NFL quarterbacks should be able to do that, though.
Most NFL quarterbacks should be able to do that. Ask Bears fans how Justin Fields looked making those throws in training camp. It was not always pretty. So I'm just saying, like, look, you got to let us be a little bit excited. He's our guy. He's back from injury. He looked very good in the like scrimmages last year. And again, I know it's practice. I know it's easier to look good in practice than on 3rd and 20, playing the Packers at Lambeau Field, game on the line, Jaire Alexander blitzing in you. Like, I get it. I get that it's harder. But what else are we supposed to look at? He looks good in practice. I'm excited. This team is great around him. I want JJ. I mean, the alternative is JJ McCarthy looks bad in practice, right? That's the other option here. No, I don't want him to look bad at practice. I want to get excited because my guy's playing well. And as he said, right, there's a ton of pressure on him. But I think he has the right attitude. He sees the pressure as a privilege. That's what he said. Like, to be in a situation where there's so much pressure on you to perform means you're doing something important that people care about. And while I don't know how he's going to look on a football field, I'm very confident he can handle that aspect of it. And that's why we drafted him.
Yeah, that Brady mentality right there. So a lot of people have been getting on me for the Brady video that we put out, which again,
this is where you tender your apology, right?
Yeah, no, it wasn't meant to be a comparison of the 7-time champion with the undrafted rookie in terms of their abilities on the field just yet. Maybe we'll get there. But here's the truth about JJ McCarthy to me, and why I actually am choosing to believe in him. It's more so to do with Kevin O'Connell. So like when I say I'm getting excited about McCarthy, I'm not a scout. Everyone who's listening to this knows that I'm not the number one trusted football opinion if you were going to go and talk to someone about a player's evaluations, especially you, Ziggy. But what I can say is Kevin O'Connell, we talk about as this QB guru. He just won Coach of the Year, widely accepted to be one of the best coaches in the NFL. And I do believe that. He got the best out of Sam Darnold. He got the best out of Kirk Cousins in his time in Minnesota. He made Josh Dobbs and Nick Mullins look like serviceable quarterbacks for a period of time a couple of years ago. If we truly believe that Kevin O'Connell is this great coach, and talent evaluator, and we saw what he was able to do with these guys in his time in Minnesota so far, and he's saying, he chose not to pursue Sam Darnold this offseason. He chose to move on from Kirk Cousins. He chose to not pursue Aaron Rodgers. Those were all Kevin O'Connell decisions. And then he flipped it and said, I believe in JJ McCarthy. So if we believe him to be this great coach and guru, when he's making the choice to go with JJ, he's seen college tape, more college tape than anyone listening here. He's seen him in the offseason last year working out. He saw him this entire season, the mental side of it, and get preparation. If Kevin O'Connell's willing to bet his future, and to some degree he is, on JJ McCarthy, then I'm willing to support that and say, I believe in the kid too. So to me, it's not so much when I come out here and say, I believe in JJ McCarthy. It's not as much me saying, I think he's going to be the next all-pro quarterback. It's me saying, I believe that our coach who sees something in him. And I'm willing to get behind that.
But I will tell you, obviously Kevin O'Connell is an important part of it, but you also need a quarterback that's willing to put in the work. And this is why during that press conference interview with JJ McCarthy yesterday, I was really impressed because it was clear that the man spent every waking minute while he was injured studying. First of all, like at this press conference, he addressed every single reporter by their first name. He's been like studying who these people are. That is hard to do. Then they asked him, like, what were you doing? What did you have an opportunity to do while you were injured that you otherwise wouldn't have? And his answer, which got some nods around the room and which has been sort of like backed up by the organization, was just he watched tape on every single defensive player in the NFL to learn their tendencies, to learn their habits. Because he said, look, I'm going to have to be game planning. This shows that he knows what he has to do. He says, I'm going to be game planning in a week. That's not a lot of time. We can kickstart my preparation if I already know. Here's how these guys work. Here's the kinds of defenses they run. Here's the sorts of packages I need to be on the lookout for. Here are their tendencies. He's taking this very seriously. And that is a kind of maturity you don't always see out of a first-round quarterback. It's true. You can say, well, that's what he's supposed to do. That's what he's paid to do. Great. Sometimes guys are paid to do that and don't do it anyway. So I'm excited to see what JJ McCarthy can do. Obviously, you don't know until rubber hits the road the first few weeks of the season. But, JJ McCarthy's never been a first-year starter anywhere he's been. High school, he wasn't a first-year starter. College, he wasn't a first-year starter. He likes having that time to get in, to study, and really learn what he's doing. I think we could look back on this as a blessing in disguise.
Pretty funny how all of a sudden now JJ McCarthy having the obsessive mindset it now sounds so great coming from Ziggy, but
it's an asset. I'm just not saying it's Tom Brady.
Maybe that was my mistake. I should have just come out and say I like the mentality and just kept Tom Brady's name out of my mouth. So yeah, we are excited though, and I think that that's the exact reason why I'm pumped up for the 2025 season and seeing what JJ has. One final piece of Viking news here, and this was exciting to see as well. Andrew Van Ginkel, 1 year, $23 million contract extension. We got him through the 2026 season. He signed a 2-year, $20 million deal last offseason. That came alongside the Jonathan Grenard deal. Both of them combined for 23.5 sacks last year. They were both second team All-Pro. Van Gink, just 29 years old. He was actually 7th in Defensive Player of the Year voting. 2 interceptions, both returned for touchdowns. Almost did it against Detroit. Career high in tackles. Just a great year for Andrew Van Ginkel, and a really fun player to watch play for your team. What producer Zach knows from his time with the Dolphins. But I mean, man, I had so much fun with Van Gink this year. To bring him back now and let him continue to be a versatile piece in this Brian Flores defense, where he played 212 snaps in coverage, and then he put his hand in the ground. Well, not really for Van Ginkel, but he was getting after the passer over 400 times. He's an important piece of this defense, and I am very, very, very excited to have him return.
I'm keeping an eye on these kinds of contract extensions because this is something relatively new that we've seen rolled out the past couple of years, particularly at this position, like the outside linebacker, edge rusher position, like 1 year big money extension. That's not a thing we've seen very much in the past. And I think the Vikings are learning the right lesson from Danielle Hunter here, right? So like we had an issue where you signed Danielle Hunter to that really great deal and it starts looking bad. And instead of immediately finding a way to like get him some more money to make him feel happy, they let that situation drag out and it was a mess every single year. I mean, you remember that. That's part of why we ultimately had to move on from him, I think. There was just too much tension in that relationship. I think these deals favor the team much more than the player. Like, I'd much rather sign Van Ginkel to this, delay his free agency another year, not have to worry about committing money to him. You said he's a young, supple 29, but that means next year he'll be 30 and then 31 when this deal's up. I like doing this rather than trying to sign guys to huge deals that will carry them into their 33, 34, or 35th year. Because around 31 or 32, most edge rushers tend to fall off pretty quickly. So I think this is a great deal for the Minnesota Vikings. If you're Van Ginkel, I mean, we have to wait for some of the details to come out, but I think you're happy getting a big pay raise, probably with a lot of guaranteed money. I just think this is a deal that makes a lot of sense for the Minnesota Vikings to do, to avoid repeating the mistakes we saw in the last regime with Danielle Hunter.
Yeah, and I mean, especially if Van Ginkel can stay healthy, it can be beneficial to him as well to have another big payday. Those massive deals are great for the player. But then when they wind up being behind the market value as contracts continue to get bigger, that's when you can see guys coming in and saying, hey, I want to renegotiate this. On the other side, when you sign those long deals, yeah, you have an injury or a drop in production. All of a sudden, it's not great for the team. So these shorter term deals, it can go, same thing. It can go either way, depending on how the player goes. And
it pretty much always favors the team.
But yeah, I think it's good for the Vikings to get this in here. Yeah, you're not tied down too long as far as the future is concerned. And something I saw about this situation with Van Ginkel the entire offseason, I saw people mentioning, Ziggy, that maybe we would trade him before the draft. There were a couple murmurings on that. It was mostly about allowing Dallas Turner the opportunity to emerge into this edge rusher role. And I just couldn't wrap my head around it. Even articles that were coming out about this Van Ginkel signing, they said, what about Dallas Turner?
What about Dallas Turner?
I was just sitting back going, did we just watch the Super Bowl and how important it is to have edge rushers that you can rotate in and give a break? As great as Grenard and Van Ginkel are, they are human, believe it or not, and they do get tired. So I would love to have 3. If Turner, first off, Van Ginkel was way better than Dallas was last year.
Van Ginkel was an all-pro.
Yeah,
hey, you should get rid of your all-pro players so you can let the largely untested rookie come in and hope that he's an all-pro.
100%. There was just so many reasons to not get rid of Van Ginkel that I know the Vikings know what they're doing for the most part.
Yeah, but that conversation didn't make any sense. You said, you need rotational players. Van Ginkel at 100%. Like if you get him 100% for 60% of his snaps, I'd rather have him there than have him at 80% for 75% of his snaps.
To me, it was almost like if you watched the Vikings last season, you saw how important this guy was, and that conversation just couldn't even come up. It was ridiculous listening to it. Every time I had that conversation come up on a radio show or a podcast I was listening to, I was just like, all right, I'm done with this. Turn it off. Like, keep the All-Pro. Have 3 great edge rushers if you believe in Dallas Turner. There's no problem with having an extra edge rusher. This isn't like a quarterback where you have 2 quarterbacks on the bench and you can't use the other one. You can play everyone. And as they said with Flores' scheme, you can have all 3 on the field at times if you want as well.
And it's not like Van Ginkel's bad in coverage.
No, it's just a tough conversation.
On defense in particular, you can always find a way to get the good players on the field. So no, don't let your All-Pro walk. Don't trade him. Baffling. I mean, we hit a home. This is the Minnesota Vikings right there, right? We hit a home run in free agency, and our fans and media can't accept that a good thing happened. So we're trying to cash in on it. Enjoy the good player. We don't always get them.
Finally, here we'll wrap it up now because we will be recording later tonight as well with Jack and Zach in studio. I just want to say I saw Brad Holmes mentioned, he's talking about all of the players that he drafted and the receivers. He said he loved his draft class, but he said, I'll give you this. The pick that was probably the most questioned, I would say, was Isaac Tesla. And I like this coming from
He
Holmes.
questioned it.
Yeah, it's kind of cool seeing the GM speak candidly like this. He said, I can say that he was my favorite receiver in this draft. I'm not saying he was the best receiver in the draft, but my favorite receiver, yes. So while that's, it's not too juicy of a statement from Brad Holmes, I do think that it's a little revealing in terms of the Lions are acknowledging that they gave up a lot to make the move for Tesla. But at the same time, Brad Holmes is saying this was a guy I really liked.
The Lions are the most frustrating team for me to talk about in the NFL draft because every year it feels like they make moves that are just obviously bad. Right? Oh, they take a running back and an off-ball linebacker in the first round and follow that up with a tight end. Oh, they focus on they get Brian Branch. That's a safety, whatever. They trade up too much to get players that they want. They always make moves that the numbers tell me are minus EV that just aren't the smart thing to do. And they own me every single time. They always win. I'm sure Tesla is going to come out here and be an all-pro receiver, make the next equivalent of Randy Moss and Percy Harvin. We're going to get that of Amon-Ra St. Brown and Isaac Tesla. Whatever's happening, they're going to get it done, I'm sure, because that's just how this front office works. Brad Holmes is a magician. I don't have his insight. A lot of NFL GMs, it reminded me a lot of the way he drafts reminds me a lot of the way Dave Gettleman drafted. He just takes the players he likes. He trades up when he wants. He doesn't care about value. He doesn't care about positions. Except when Brad Holmes does it, it works.
Or perception.
Yeah. He's willing to just do whatever he wants. And it's worked out great for them. So I guess until they prove otherwise, I'm sure they got the best receiver in the draft. Congratulations. What am I supposed to say? The moves don't make sense and they work every single time.
They've been on a heater, that's for sure. And if Tesla winds up working out next to Williams and Amon-Ra, I think the scariest part of that offense is the rushing attack with Thunder and Lightning, or I'm sorry, the Sonic and Knuckles as they're called. But man, if you could add a 6'4" freak athlete to that group, they're tough enough to slow down. They don't need another receiver. I know that they actually kind of do need another receiver, but we
don't want him to have another receiver.
I do not want to. Oh, dude, if he was good, it'll be a disaster. All right, we'll wrap it up here. For Paul and Ziggy, quick NFC North hits. I know we didn't hit the Bears today, but we covered them a lot in yesterday's show.
Also, there's really no Bears news at all. I don't think there's going to be a lot of Bears news until OTAs when Caleb Williams is in the best shape of his life. And we saw a lot of videos talking about how scared we are of him.
Basically, the Bears news is just saying that Caleb Williams, it's now or never, no more excuses. That's it. And we could sit here for another 5 minutes and talk about that, but we're not.
You've already heard that. And the fact is, it's not now or never, no more excuses. That's just not true. If Caleb Williams has a mediocre year, he's going to get another chance, right? This is what last year we heard now or never, no excuses because of the offense they built around him. And that turned out to be a disaster. Now we're hearing now or never no excuses because it got better and they've added some more pieces around him and a head coach. There's always an excuse. Caleb Williams is getting another year no matter what.
Yeah, so we don't need to get into that conversation. But if you're a Bears fan,
I was trying to bait you there. It didn't work.
You came really close because I was. You did come exceptionally close right there. But I agree with you though. For the most part, you can make excuses, but at the same time, he is going to get the season. They have invested a lot in his draft pick, and they've invested a lot in what they're building around him. So unless if Caleb comes out and it's just horrible, yeah, it's second year Thanksgiving is the time period that most coaches right now and general managers like to have a decision going forward.
But here's what you're going to hear. You're going to hear first year offense. You're going to hear the offensive line is aging. A guy or two got injured on the offensive line.
Yes. The excuses are there. And even if Caleb's struggling, but I still think he'll get the third year. Unless he is just absolutely horrible, which I would be surprised.
If he's as good as last year, he'll get a third year.
Absolutely. So I guess the excuses aren't there in terms of sucking. Like if Caleb Williams sucks, then it's going to be hard to come up with too many.
All you need is 3 or 4 games, right? Think of how bad Bryce Young was, and then he put together 3 games that were pretty decent, and now the Panthers are just building around him. It is so easy to impress people in the NFL.
It's a what have you done for me lately league. And you see that all the time. All right, well done. You got me to talk about the Bears for a few minutes there. We'll wrap it up here. We'll be back tomorrow morning with an episode coming out. And this is going to be a fun one, guys. We're going to do a lot of like future prediction stuff. Ziggy has a game he wants to play. And I've been wanting to do this all offseason. I have to make sure that I can get over in time to the local Chinese restaurant, because I want to get some fortune cookies and play the fortune cookie game where we're going to...
Never before done on. No, don't tell them. People are seeing your fortune cookie game. They're going to think, what's that? This has never been done on any other YouTube channel.
I've never seen it. So hopefully we have that tomorrow. And that'll be a blast. We'll see you then.